this is the Oral History Broadcast. I'm Ray Mofield, and we're visiting today in the home of Mattie Lou Barnes Riley of 417 West 12th in Benton. Miss Riley, thank you for letting me come. We'd like to start off and ask you the name of your father.
My father was James Lee Barnes.
And your mother was?
Sheila Austin.
Sheila Austin. So we had the Barnes and the Austin families cross there. Do you know very much about their background? Do you remember either of your grandparents on either side?
Oh yes, I remember my grandfather Barnes and my grandfather Austin. My grandfather Austin was a farmer all his life, and he worked real hard.
Lived here in Marshall County. Okay. And the Barnes side of the family, were they farmers or merchants or?
Well, I had a close relative that was a merchant in Calvert City. He ran a dry goods store. And this building where Joseph's dry goods store is, I think it was called the Barnes Building. I mean, it had the name there in the door for years and years. My grandpa Griffith was a dealer in tobacco. He didn't raise tobacco, but some way he bought it and sold it.
Was there once a tobacco loose leaf floor here in Benton?
Seems like a long time ago there was.
You know, I've wondered about that. Of course, I was born in Marshall County, but Dad was sharecropper and moved around a lot, and I grew up principally in Callaway County until I was a sophomore in high school. So I didn't come to Benton as much as some people do, and I can't remember from my memory a tobacco floor. It seemed we always either had to take the tobacco to Murray or Mayfield or Paducah to sell it.
I can't recall about that, about Uncle Hardy, but how he dealt that or where he communicated. He could be that it was.
I believe I've heard my father talk about a tobacco buyer named Griffith.
Seemed like they used to come through the county and buy tobacco.
They would go out to the farms many times, and especially if tobacco happened to be a little scarce. And they'd make the purchase and bring it in. So there were buyers that came around. I believe there was, I don't know what I caught, was this Griffin or Griffith?
Griffith.
I-T-H.
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe he said Griffin and Pitts or something like that was one of the old-time buyer groups. Now, was there a city judge named Barnes here in town? It seems to me like I remember a Judge Barnes.
Pop Barnes, that was his nickname.
I believe,
right?
yeah, I think that was his nickname. I don't remember what his real name was, but
I can't recall.
I can remember though that they'd always talk about Judge Barnes. Sounded impressive to me.
He was crippled. That had gotten out of my mind, but he was a little.
I don't remember. I don't recall that I ever saw the person, but I can just remember the time. You know, they talk about Judge Barnes. All right. Well, how many members were there in your family? How many children?
We made a family. There was 2 girls and 2 boys.
Now, of course, I know Pauline.
Yes.
Now, the boys were
Joe Scott and James Robert.
Joe Scott and James Robert. Now, was Joe Scott the one that was a salesman?
Yes, he was a salesman for a sock company for years and years. In fact, he retired from that work.
He lived in, was it Middle Tennessee?
He lived at, the time of his retirement was in Murfreesboro.
Well, I guess they're happy today. I understand they may have gotten the new General Motors plant.
Is that right?
In that general area, at Spring Hill, which wouldn't be too far from Nashville, or Murfreesboro, either one. And with $1 billion being spent.
Well, I hadn't heard that.
That's
Well, that settles a big question in a lot of people's mind, doesn't it? Wonder if they were surprised.
I don't know, but I tell you, that Tennessee governor is, you've got to take off your hat to him some way. Well, let's get back.
Now, George Scott is living here now. See, after he retired, he retired a few years ago.
I don't see him. Of course, I don't get out in town much anymore. Most days I'm teaching, and I get up and leave for Murray about 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes I don't come home till in the night, so I don't see Joe Scott. Where does he hang out? Hutchins? Or?
I don't know. I guess where most all the other retired men.
Yeah.
And it seems to be the headquarters at Druthers.
Yeah. All right, now, you were born in Benton?
That's right. I was born, I'll tell you where, you may remember the house down there on the corner of where Trees Lumber Company is now, just north,
Uh-huh.
the White House.
Yes, yes. I remember
And
that.
my father used to work for Trees Company years and years ago.
Trees?
He was a carpenter,
They've been around a good long while, haven't
Mr.
they?
Cliff Trees.
Uh-huh. I remember Mr. Trees quite well. Now, I suppose then that you went to school in Benton.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember any of your teachers that you may have had?
Well, that's been so many years ago. I can't recall my first teacher. Might have been Miss Georgia Brandon. No,
Might have been.
no. I think it was farther back than that.
Well, I'm sure that in later years you probably remembered people like, say, Matt Sparkman
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
and Miss Addie Fawn.
Oh, yes. May Rogers.
Now, at one time, Hatler Morgan taught over here at the high school.
I can't recall that.
I remember that he coached debate in 1940. Now, that's one thing I can remember because he had a team. I don't remember all the members of the team, but he did have a starting lineup of Eugene Rudd and Rayburn Watkins.
Eugene Rudd.
Yeah.
I remember Rayburn very well. I remember Mary Malin being on the debating team.
Oh, Mary Malin. Now, she lives out the highway just north of Benton before you get to Draftonville. I've interviewed her one time, and she worked at an insurance office over here. I remember that much about her. Well, let's, could you tell us some of the things that you liked about school most? Did you like reading, writing, arithmetic, science, poetry?
I guess my choice of subject would be home economics.
Home economics was good.
May Rogers was my home economics teacher.
Uh-huh. Now that ought to make Janie Bell, my wife, happy, because she teaches home ec.
Yes.
So, been on a trip to Louisville this week, getting ready for the new school year. All right, tell us, did you have a activity back in those days that they called FHA, Future Homemakers?
Oh, yes. And we got a camp. I remember I went to camp.
Well, that was up at Hardensburg, I suppose. I know they did have a camp. I've taken Janie up there many, many different years, and she'd take several girls along with her. And they'd spend about a week, it seems to me.
I can't recall going out of the county, but I do recall spending a week out here at Brewers, and at that time,
It was a long trip.
Quite a treat.
Yeah.
Sunshine Collie was a demonstration. She was
Oh, yes.
a demonstration at that age of
I certainly remember Miss Colley. She was a great one. I really enjoyed being around her, and she worked hard for her ideals. anything she was engaged in was always number one at that point, of course. Well, you finished school, and what was your first job? Working in the store you were talking about? Or?
Well, I guess I would say that was my first job. After I got married, we ran a dry goods and shoes business.
All right, whom did you marry?
Ray Riley.
Most of us called him Coleman Riley.
That's right.
Okay. And you had any children?
I had one son.
And that's R.C.
That's R.C. He's a Roy Coleman.
He's a junior then.
That's right. The second.
I hear him on the radio about every day. He's always, talking to some famous movie star, television man, and the guy says, well, R.C., why is it you think you can do a better job for me than other people can? And he says, well, I'm an independent insurance agent.
Well, I'm proud of R.C.
Yeah.
He's very energetic.
Mm-hmm.
What he does, he tries to do well.
He's been in, some of the civic clubs and worked at various projects around town, try to make Marshall County a better place to live and all that. I see his name and first one thing and then another. He's married, is he?
Yes, he married Jane Butler from Memphis.
Do they have any children?
Oh, yes, they have two sons, Keith Butler and Roy C. Riley III.
Mm-hmm. So you have grandsons, and they're close enough that you can enjoy them?
Enjoy them, that's right. They're both teenagers, and I'm very proud of them.
Right now, in this store, you of course had to put up with, I guess, for lack of a better term, I'll say it, I won't let you say it, people of various backgrounds and dispositions and so forth. It's just like, I don't know if I ought to tell this or not, but I just came from post office at Hardin. And a fellow was in there who was wanting to buy some stamps. But he didn't like the stamps they showed him. And it took, I guess, a half an hour maybe to get him satisfied. They'd look at one, he'd say, well, that's too big. The next one would say, honoring Jacques Cousteau, the great French scientist who works to save the whales. He'd say, I don't care anything about saving the whales. I don't want any stamp with Jacques Cousteau on it. Now, did you have to put up with anything like that?
Well, of course, anyone that's serving the public, because there's a variety of opinions and personalities, and I thoroughly enjoyed my work. And it's kind of like any other thing. It's at times it tries your soul.
Yeah.
But I've met a lot of good friends, and I still have a lot of friends, and I cherish them. And but I was happy and thankful that I was offered the opportunity to work in a place like United States Postal Service.
Mm-hmm. You stayed in this store a good many years, and then how did it come about that you went into the Postal Service?
Well, my husband was up in years, and he had bad health.
Mm-hmm. So you needed to get out of that business.
To get out, and Dr. Vernon Pace advised him to. He had eye trouble. I mean, his vision got bad, and he thought he would be better off in the outside.
Do you have to take an examination to get to...
Well, at that time, I didn't have to, only a physical examination. And not a written test. Oh, yes, I did. Pardon me. Yes, I did.
In recent times, they've done that. I don't know whether they always did or not. But, so you became postmaster. About what year was that? Or you started working, you weren't postmaster at the beginning when you first started?
Right. No, I was acting postmaster for 4 years. It was in 1952, I believe.
All right.
And I worked as acting postmaster 4 years, and then I was confirmed 4 years later. I mean, at the end of the 4 years.
Now, do they have any kind of a training program or anything that do you have to go to, like teachers go to meetings and...
I think they do now, and of course they have seminars. They did then. I mean, you'd have to go to Evansville and Louisville for seminars for different postal districts.
Did anybody ever ask you if you had any specials on stamps? You run any sales or anything?
No, but I tell you, people that collect stamps, yes, there's any specials. But it's amusing how people invest their money, and it is a good investment in stamps because they never lose their value. In fact, it's like coins. It's just a way of saving a little money on the side.
Well, I've never really been a serious collector of stamps. I've saved a few, but I've read of people at their death, for example, why the taxman would come around and say, "Why, this collection is worth $100,000."
Wasn't it Mr. Truman, President Truman, that had a huge collection?
He may have. I know President Roosevelt had a real big...
Oh, mine doesn't amount to that much.
Collection.
Mine's very meager.
But now there's something, they like to save the corner where the serial number
That's right,
is.
the serial number. But it's amusing how people put value on things that maybe one person would and one person wouldn't. Like the zip code.
Oh, there are
That's just what you...
all sorts of collectibles. I read not too long ago about a person who had a giant collection of matchbooks.
Yes.
And told how many thousands they had. Of course, you get thinking about it. Everybody and his uncle, every candidate that ever ran probably had a matchbooks, and then there's every business that ever opened had matchbooks. So there would be a lot of those things. And another thing I noticed was people collect, Coke bottles. And some even collect old, they were ads, I suppose, but they were little trays that were back in the 30s, and it had a picture of the Coca-Cola girl on it. And they've saved those things, and they sell at these sales and swap and so on and so forth.
I can tell you a collection that a gentleman had when he first came to Marshall County. Believe it or not, it was barbed wire.
Barbed wire.
Different types of barbed wire.
You know, I've heard of that. There was a story in seems to me it may have been Time magazine about a barbed wire collection, and they could look at the points on that wire, whether they were double points or they got to be 4 in later years, and how they were shaped, and tell you who made it in what year. So that any kind of collection. Old cars, of course, make fine collections and so forth. Well, when you started working in the store, did you draw a regular salary then, or did you?
Yes.
I wondered how that compared to salaries today. imagine it had been quite a bit lower, wouldn't
It
it?
was quite a bit lower.
One teacher told me they started teaching for $40 a month.
Well, I have one better than that. I taught for $36 a month.
$36 a month. Well, you didn't tell me you taught. Now, where did you?
Oh, I taught in the one-room schools. I taught 6 years
And was that at Benton or?
out in the county. I taught my home school out at Church Grove.
Church Grove. Well, now that'll make my mother-in-law happy, Ruth
Yeah.
Blumenberg, because she's always talking about Church Grove.
Well, her children went to school to me.
They did.
Billy Joe and
Uh-huh.
Jimmy and George.
Uh-huh.
Janie Bell and her sister was quite a bit younger than me.
Yes, they were. They came from a second
Yes.
marriage after the first wife had died. So there was a good little bit difference there. He taught at Church Grove. You know, I've thought so many times about the county school system. It seemed that a great deal of them, there'd be a church and a school right together. There was Church Grove Methodist Church and Church Grove School. And I can't begin to name all of them, but I know at Oak Valley where they later went.
I taught at Oak Valley.
You did? Well, last year they had a reunion at Oak Valley School, and we got to laughing. Somebody down there, I believe maybe it was Bob Peck, called it the University of Oak Valley.
Well, that sounds like Bob.
And I believe they're
Bob
having
and
it.
I graduated from high school together in the same class.
But was he always kind of a lively?
Oh, yes. He never did see a stranger.
I think he told me he was on the debating team, so he was a good talker, even in those days. Well, you had some real alumni then.
Do you recall the Pritchard family that lived down there?
Oh, yes.
In the school.
At one time they lived up near what I call My Hardin Farm. It's a little west of town. I believe they moved there, Mr. Pritchard and his family, after they had lived down in the Oak Valley country. And let's see, there were some older.
Krellis was the older son.
Krellis, yeah. Now, in our neighborhood, we called him Lynn.
Yes, Krellis Lynn.
Krellis, Lynn Pritchard. I knew them well. In fact, his farm, he's now deceased, but his widow still has it, joins my farm, my father and mother's place. And there was Foy and Philip married Corbett Tucker's daughter. Now, he was about my age. And there was Finus, and there was Louise, one of the girls.
Did they have two sets of twins?
I believe they did, come to
They
think
did.
of it. 2 sets of twins. It was a large family.
Now, there was an older sister, too, that was more the age of Krellis Lynn.
I don't remember her name.
But that was one of the nicest families I have ever had any dealings with.
And the girls were beautiful, weren't they?
All of them were beautiful.
And the family, as you say, was a very nice family. I know one of the boys, Ambrose, went to Murray State, majored in chemistry, and was one of the top students they ever had there, and he's been a mainstay in the atomic program at Oak Ridge. So
That's
all of them did well.
Well, I tell you, back then, I don't see how people hardly survived because, with big families like that, but they were just one of the nicest families you could hope to meet and know.
Well, very good. We're down to just about 2 minutes left. Now, can you tell me some of the funny things that have happened to you in your life? You remember, let's say, as Art Linkletter used to say, my most embarrassing moment? Did you?
Well, I guess I've had some embarrassing moments. But I haven't had as an exciting life as some people have. And,
You weren't like Pauline, grabbed the rifle and ran off the John Dillinger and Company.
I didn't have an episode like that. I could tell you some funny things that happened when I was in the post office, but I don't think I should.
Did you remember when there was train service in Benton?
Oh yes, very well.
Did you ride the train any then?
Oh yes, we would
Go to Paducah?
go to Paducah and Murray. I had relatives that lived in Murray too. That was quite a treat for me. And I had a good friend, Edna Lee Carter. Her father worked for the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And I visited her. That's when we had section houses down there near the railroad.
Oh, yes. Hardin had a section house. Benton had one.
Sometimes I think I'm quite older than when I think about things that happened back in those days.
Hasn't life changed a great deal?
It's unbelievable almost.
Well, we certainly thank you for allowing us to come today and visit with you. We've been visiting in the home of Mattie Lou Barnes Riley, 417 West 12th Street, here in Benton. This is Ray Mofield speaking, and we return you now to our studio.